Hi, I'm Gareth Green, and in this video we're going to address a very specific question: when should you use second inversion chords? So why is this such a big deal? Because people are always getting in touch with me saying, oh, second inversions, never know what to do with these things. Or they send me something that they've done, a harmony exercise or a composition or something, and it's full of second inversion chords that don't work very well. And then, maybe I suggest that they change the inversion and they're going, but why? What's wrong with these second inversions? Well, let's quickly explain that. If we take a chord of C major, let's keep this simple, C, E, G. So chord 1 in C major. Say I organize it in 4 parts like this. So I've got the notes C, E, and G all spread out, but I've got C in the bass. So that's a C major chord in root position. Well, however you do that, it always sounds kind of fulsome and complete. So I can change the order of things above that C in the bass. It's a kind of entity in itself. Works perfectly well. Now, let's put that same chord in first inversion. So I've still got the same note, C, E, G, but I'm putting E in the bass. Sounds all right. Let's reorganize the notes on top of the E. So however I do it, as long as I'm using that same chord, C, E, G, but I've got E in the bass, there it is in first inversion. Sounds pretty solid on its own, doesn't it? Now, here's the strange thing. As soon as I take the same chord and put it in second inversion, it starts to feel less stable. So C, E, G again, but this time G is in the bass. Now, the minute I play that chord, there's nothing wrong with the chord. You might listen to that and think, yeah, what's the big deal? It sounds all right. But it doesn't sound completely happy on its own, because it's kind of wanting to go somewhere. It's wanting to progress. So how about this? If I play the second inversion chord of C major, so C, E, G, with G in the bass, it sort of wants to do this. And there you go. Ah, that's better. Now, what happened there? I started with that C major chord, or chord 1 in C major, in second inversion, but this note and this note are now pulling down, and paw is also pulling down. So when I get to the kind of resolution of it, I've still got G in the bass, but now I've got a different chord. I've now got a G major chord, or a chord 5. So the C major chord in second inversion sometimes kind of pulls you onto notes that turn it into a G major chord, or it's a 1 in second inversion going to a 5 in root position. So in other words, in root position and in first inversion, chords have a kind of inbuilt stability. As soon as you go into second inversion, there's a kind of inbuilt instability, because above that G, the note that's a 6 above it is pulling you to the 5th above it, and the note that's a 4th above it is pulling you to a 3rd above it. And this is often what we call in the trade a 6/4 5/3 progression. When it comes at a cadence, we call it a cadential 6/4. But it's this idea that you've got 6/4, which is describing a second inversion chord. I've got, in this case, C in the bass. This note's 6 above the bass. This note's 4 above the bass, and this is just doubling the bass. So can you see this is a 6 that's going to 5, and this is a 4 that's going to 3 above the bass. So I've got 6/4, 5/3. That's how this progression works. And whichever part has the 6, the same part goes to 5. So this is going 6 to 5. And whichever part has the 4, the same part goes to 3. So in this case, the alto part is going 4 to 3 above the bass. The tenor part is going 6 to 5. So in other words, I wouldn't go 6 and jump to 3, and I wouldn't go 4 and jump to 5. So 4 goes to 3, 6 goes to 5. That makes it a smoother progression. But if we listen to the example that I've written there, this is what it sounds like. So the first chord sounds fine, but when you hear the second chord, you think, ah, yes, I've come home. Everything can relax now. So there's an instability about that doesn't resolve until we hear this chord. And it's all about this 6/4 5/3 progression. So it always happens over the same bass note. So the things I played a moment ago were based on G in the bass. Here's another example with C in the bass. So if I'm in C major, this is a chord of F with C in the bass, going to a chord of C, or you might know it as a 4C followed by a 1, or you might know it as a 4/6/4 followed by a 1. Okay, all the same thing, but it's this 6 pulling to 5 to 4 pulling to 3, or the combination of 6/4 pulling to 5/3. 6/4 always describes a second inversion chord. 5/3 always describes a root position chord. So it's kind of like we've got one chord in second inversion, and when we go 6 to 5, 4 to 3, we end up with a different chord in root position over the same bass note. So it's quite neat, isn't it? But it has that kind of pull. Well, here's another example of it where you look at the first two chords and it's the same thing. 4 is going to 3 in the tenor part there, and 6 is going to 5 in the soprano part. But this time we're moving on to chord 1. So this time I'm going 1 in second inversion to 5 to 1, or I'm going C/G to G to C, depending on how you look at it. So this is going 6/4/5/3, and then it's moving on to a different chord. So it sounds like this. So the first one is just doing that to this one. This one is doing the same thing, but moving on to another chord. And I said that the bass note would be the same. Well, here I've got a G up there followed by a G down an octave. So you can change the octave, but it's still the same note. So one place in which you can safely use second inversions is when you're dealing with these 6/4/5/3 progressions. Now, another place where you can safely use them are these things that we call passing 6/4s, passing 6/4 progressions. Now, what's going on here? Well, let me play these to you. Here's the first one I've written. Or, and here's the second one I've written. Or. So what are we doing here? Well, this is chord 1 in root position. This is chord 1 in first inversion, a 1B or a 1/6 chord. And this is chord 5 in second inversion. So this chord here is a second inversion chord. So this is a chord of C, to think of it a different way. This is a chord of G over D in the bass. This is a chord of C over E in the bass. So you see how that's going. Now this is called a passing 6/4 because it's a chord that's passing between this chord and that chord. See how that works? It's literally just passing between two chords. What are these outer chords? Well, C major or C major in first inversion, or chord 1, chord 1B. In between 1 and 1B, you can put 5C, or to put it a different way, in between C and C/E, you can put a G/D chord. Okay, so you can put a chord 5 in second inversion in between a chord 1 in root position and a 1 in first inversion. You can go that way. You can also go the opposite way. So in the first version, I'm starting in root position, moving on to the 6/4 onto the first inversion. In this second version of it, I'm just going the other way. I'm starting in that first inversion, passing 6/4, going on to the root position. So you can go either way. So you can use a 5 in second inversion between 1 and 1B, whichever way you want to do it. So you can have the other way around. But you can also do this. You can use chord 4 followed by 1 in second inversion, followed by 4 in first inversion, or the other way around. 4 in first inversion, 1 in second inversion, 4 in root position. or you could say that's F followed by C/G followed by F/A, or the other way around. So it kind of works quite nicely as a passing 6/4 progression between 1 and 1 in first inversion, or another passing 6/4 progression between 4 in root position and 4 in first inversion. Let me play you those again. Or alternatively, so this time the instability of that second inversion chord is kind of taken care of because it's part of this progression between two other chords that are more kind of solid. So you've got these two outer chords as kind of pillars supporting that passing 6/4 in between. Now, what I'm going to suggest to you is that the two instances that we've talked about, the 6/4-5/3 progression and the passing 6/4, are the safest places to use second inversion chords. So if you're currently writing music thinking, well, I'm plastering my music with second inversion chords, wondering why they don't all work, this could be a clue to what's the problem. Or if you're thinking, well, the trouble is I always write in root position and first inversion, and I don't use second inversions because I don't really know what I'm doing with them. Well, start out by using second inversions in these places, and you know you're on pretty safe ground. There are other places you can use second inversions, but these are the safe places to do it. So I hope you can kind of see and hear why second inversion chords don't have the stability of root position and first inversion chords, and how they kind of work in these particular situations. So they are safe places in which to use them. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, you might want to go to our website, www.mmcourses.co.uk. And if you're sort of thinking, actually, I'm a bit of a keyboard player myself and kind of understanding a bit more about these chords and being able to do that under my fingers would be really helpful. Well, when you get to the website, click on courses and have a look at our keyboard harmony course, because that's a kind of quite a big course that kind of goes through exactly how to find chords under your fingers, what are the progressions that work, what are the do's and don'ts, how to do kind of fancy chords that just make it a bit more interesting and a bit more spicy. So that would help anybody who's kind of writing, anybody who's improvising, anybody who's just wanting to get a bit of facility for using chords under their fingers. Lots of other things on the website as well. Feel free to have a browse around and see what's on offer. But it may be that that keyboard harmony course is something that you'd like to get stuck into.